Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
Welcome back to It's Just Coffee and welcome back to our World of Coffee Dubai special. You've already heard some of the amazing conversations we've had, like our chat with Wilfred Lemastis Jr., the farmer behind the world's most expensive coffee. And we chatted with the World Barista Champion, Mikhail Jasin, but we're just getting started. For the next 2 weeks, we're doubling down, double the caffeine, double the podcast. We're dropping 4 new episodes each week, Tuesday to Friday. More deep dives, more behind-the-scenes moments, and more of the world's best coffee minds, all straight from Dubai. So grab a coffee, settle in, and get ready for another episode of It's Just Coffee. Enjoy the show.
Well, everyone, welcome back to the It's Just Coffee podcast. I'm joined by Ben Put. Ben from Canada, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
What are you doing here at the World of Coffee in Dubai?
This has been an interesting show. I'm here helping a few baristas. I'm brewing on a couple of bars, but it's been very kind of low-key for me, actually. So I've just mostly got to see a cool coffee scene.
And so you're a little bit in the coaching, but you've made your name as like the most winningest Canadian barista of all time. You've won how many Canadian Barista Championships?
I think I've won 6.
6?
And I've also won brewers.
When a few months ago you posted this really awesome reel on Instagram, it was that really legendary Alexander Skarsgård monologue from the Star Wars series Andor. And basically, why do I keep doing barista competitions? And it's like, what do I sacrifice? Everything.
All the pain, all the late nights.
Why do you keep coming back?
Yeah, I ask myself that many nights. I think for me, barista, especially barista, it forces you to learn. So especially the way I do it, I have a coach, but I build my own set. I source my coffee, I roast my coffee, I figure out how to brew it. And so it's always sort of pushing you forward. I always have ideas. I think currently to me, the barista stage is sort of like the TED Talk of coffee. If you have something to share and you can make it to Worlds, that's the place to share it. And so that's really cool. And then also like, if it wasn't for comps, I would not be sitting here. We wouldn't be chatting. And so for me, I've seen what coffee competitions can do for someone that just started as a barista. And so I still believe in that format. And I still believe that's the best way to sort of move coffee forward at the moment.
When you've done, you said that it's the best opportunity for you to learn. What would you say the 3 biggest things you've learned are from competing in barista competitions? Like, could be advancements, could be in your personal life. What are the 3 biggest things?
I think the roasting actually has been a huge part of it because you get cold-hearted feedback on what happened. And so for me, I've roasted the coffee for my comps since 2016. And I think it really forces you to dive into roasting. It also forces you to dive into brewing, like how to make the coffee really taste good. And so it sort of hones some of the skill sets that you think you're good at. You get your score sheet back and you're like, I wasn't actually that good at that. And let's try and go back to the drawing board and figure it out.
So roasting's 1. What would be 2?
I think brewing's a really key one. But I think, honestly, it should build you across the board. It also forces you to learn a lot about producing countries and things like that, how that connects to the cup.
So when you say brewing, do you mean making a filter coffee?
No, like brewing and pulling espressos, like trying, because basically what you have is often at comps, you have 30 minutes to dial your coffee to make what should be the best coffee in the world. You get thrown a grinder, a machine, you don't have control over the water. So it really forces you to figure out, like, if it tastes astringent, what are you going to do? If it's too bright, what are you going to do? You need all these strategies and you need to decide in a split second how to make that coffee taste better. I think sometimes, especially in cafes now, we get spoiled where we control every variable, right? Like we can control the pressure or the water or all these little things. And there's something cool about the barista craft where it's like, here's a grinder. You get to pick your coffee, but here's a grinder, here's a machine, here's some water. You better make it taste good.
And number 3?
Number 3, I would say I have not learned this lesson, but it's very key is like the work-life balance of things. And maybe it's an awareness that whatever you do in coffee, you're probably sacrificing something else and making sure it's worth it.
Well, let's dive deeper on that. You've got 2 children now.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen you in Melbourne with your family. So I think
Yep.
your wife was pregnant at the time and you had your...
Melbourne, the baby was there. Rosie was born by that point.
And
Yep.
then you've got your son Malcolm, is it?
Yep, that's right.
And so... and one of the things you said to me at the Espresso Lab the other day was that you're balancing family time a lot more this year. So, like, how much time have you spent away, and what's the strain been on your wife?
Yeah, I'm not at like the other Canadian Cole. I think he did like 9 months last year. I think I traveled 4 last year.
Wow,
which was
that's
a
still
lot.
a lot.
Yeah, especially when the kids are that little, they change like really quickly, and you can see all that. The balance now is trying to bring them on trips and really make sure that the trip is worth it. I have a lot of FOMO sometimes, so any trip I'll go and do it. I'm trying to pick and choose, and also when I'm back, make sure that I don't just jump right back into work and trying to figure that out. I think the thing is no one's ever going to perfect it. You never talk to someone in coffee where they're like, I have figured out work-life balance. But I think being aware of it and trying to work towards it's the key.
Well, this is the thing that I'm 30 now, and so I'm in a committed relationship, have been for a couple of years, and last year I skipped Valentine's Day because I opened my shop. So then this year I'll fly back tomorrow and I'll arrive at 10 p.m. at home on Valentine's Day.
So technically it's still Valentine's. So you get 2 hours.
Yeah, but it's probably not a great endorsement. Then if we want to go to World of Coffee in Jakarta, the day after that is my girlfriend's birthday. And it's like, this is just one example, but this conversation can relate to kind of anyone that's listening.
Yeah.
You really do have to manage these things, and things like the work, things that you achieve, they come and go, but like your family and your life, it's really important.
Oh yeah, especially when you have kids. Like there's a graph somewhere I saw on the internet, the amount of time you spend with your kids when they're young, and you get a lot of time with them. Mm-hmm. Once they're a teenager, they don't want to hang out with their dad anymore, and it only gets less and less. So I'm trying to enjoy.
You gotta take in the cute years.
Yeah, and when they still think you're cool, you gotta live that.
Do you think that your children will get into coffee? Are there signs of it?
Malcolm has been like on and off. Rosie just turned 3 and she's into it.
At 3 years old.
Like Cole did a forward pop-up and I took the kids and Rosie had a filter coffee. She had an espresso and she had a Chesve, like an e-brick. She didn't sleep like the whole night. But
you're feeding your 3-year-old child.
I know I'm a bad, they'll call it parental services. But I feel like there's no study that says caffeine's bad for kids. That just keeps them up. And she likes it. She'll drink.
But hey, there'll be someone in the comments that's roasting us. You're basically the worst person on the planet.
I know. But I only give her good stuff. Like the kids are spoiled. They drink like Panama Geishas and things like that. But she drinks it black. She'll have like, and an espresso cup is basically the size of a coffee cup for her. She'll have like a little coffee most mornings and she loves it.
So you're from Calgary in Canada. Mm-hmm. And Calgary seems to be the hotbed for specialty coffee in Canada. So you've got people like yourselves, Cole and David from Rosso Coffee.
Yep.
It's Phil and Sebastian.
Yeah.
Why is Calgary the scene?
I think in a good environment, a good competitive environment, iron really does sharpen iron. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the things I've experienced in the past is sometimes it's hard to know where you sit in the industry. Like, how's your roasting? How's your green coffee quality? And so I think having those easy checks where you get to taste it. I also think the market has Phil and Sebastian were one of the first cafes to do it in Calgary. And they built a really loyal community of people that want to support specialty because you can't do quality if people don't want to pay for it.
That's right.
I see the same thing in Melbourne. People believe in the product and they support it. And I think that early community has fueled us to be able to do what we want to do.
Are you a Tim Hortons guy?
I think there's something, I've never liked coffee until I got into specialty.
Yeah.
And so I never was really drinking Tim Hortons. I think it's easier to get into specialty if you don't drink coffee prior because it's almost like you saw something wrong with coffee and then you found the thing that works. So I don't drink coffee in the morning either.
You don't drink coffee in the morning?
I don't need it. So I'm purely like a pleasure seeker when it comes to coffee.
I find I've had so much coffee in my life, having worked in this industry. I find that I don't really need it to survive anymore and get through my day. I just need it to avoid a headache. Like if I don't have it by like 11 a.m., then I just get a headache. Are you the same?
No, I can coast. So like when it took me 18 hours to fly from Calgary to Dubai, I didn't have any caffeine. This is tea. Peppermint tea.
Yeah, no, you're rocking it.
Yeah, so it's just, I'm not addicted so far.
We had a really interesting conversation about our travels to Origin the other day when I met you at the Espresso Lab, and we were talking particularly about Bolivian specialty coffee. So you're one of the few roasters in the world that has access to coffee from Finca Takesi, but you also buy coffee from the Rodriguez family in Caranavi. Let's hone in on that, because I think Bolivia, it's one of the more difficult countries for people to ship their coffee, for producers to ship their coffee out, because the roads are like terrible, and it's completely landlocked, so there's no port. What are some of the challenges they face in literally getting their coffee out?
Yeah, I think the ones you listed, I think, are really key. Production has gone down. The Rodriguez family, especially, their big focus is trying to increase production, because sometimes there's just not enough coffee there. There's some regions of Bolivia where it's legal to grow coca leaves because they consume it as part of their culture.
And that's made into cocaine?
No, they drink it as tea or they chew it.
It can be
produced into cocaine.
But I chewed some when I was there.
It's very mild, actually.
You're right. It's got a lot of cultural significance.
Yeah, but I think it's about every year you can get 5 harvests of coca.
Yeah.
So the money is much more regular versus coffee. You get 1 harvest per year. So it's hard to incentivize producers. So I think if there's just not a lot of stock and not a lot of buyers, you're able to come. And I think Bolivia just hasn't been celebrated as much for coffee. So I really admire what the Rodriguez family and what Mariana Takesi are doing, because they're sort of pushing Bolivian coffee. And if you have a good Bolivian coffee, it's unforgettable. I know how much you love the Rodriguez family and Takesi, and I'm the same way.
But this is the thing. It's every bit as good as a Wash Panama can be. Think from Takesi, whether it's Las Salicitas or some of the other farms there, it's just as good as Panamanian coffee. And I think they're getting even better now at producing naturally processed coffees. Because one of the big challenges in Bolivia is the rainfall is so constant during the sort of harvest period. So it's really hard to grow naturals. But now they've innovated with mechanically drying, and they're sort of mastering anaerobic fermentations as well. It's really wonderful to see their progression over a number of years.
Yeah, I think Bolivia, to me, just like you said, it can compete with almost any coffee out there. And it's just a matter of getting that production up enough and also having people tell the story. I think Panamanians have done an amazing job telling their story, and people know that brand. They built a brand around it. And I think that's the next thing, is Bolivia needs to build the brand.
Oh, I think it's entirely possible. And Danielle is here. She's at the expo exhibiting. So, I mean, I'll probably go there after this.
The coffees are good.
Try some of their stuff. What are you planning to do for competition this year? What sneak peeks can you give us?
Oh yeah, so I have a thing. Do you know who Ronnie Coleman is? You must.
Because the bodybuilder.
Yeah, the bodybuilder. So Ronnie Coleman's thing is nothing but a peanut, but his other thing is he is never not training. Back in the day, so bodybuilders they'd compete and then they would gain a bunch of weight and they'd take it off. Ronnie Coleman's always competing. I'm the same way. I'm always training. I'm always competing. I spent some time in Portland with Christopher Hendon. We're working on some comp stuff.
Dr. Christopher Hendon.
Sorry. Yes. I'm sorry.
He's also got a coffee podcast.
Yeah, it's quite good. Lit review, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
But sorry, keep going with your point.
So Chris, I have a bunch of ideas figured out. This year, I found a 40 amp breaker in our basement. So I'm going to try and build I have enough electricity to put an espresso machine in our basement.
Oh, okay.
So my wife does not like this idea, because I'm basically going to build a comp stage in the basement and just practice nonstop. So that's going to start next month. The speech is almost done. Comp is in July. So knock on wood, we'll do it. But Canada, I think Australia is the hardest region for barista, but I think Canada is maybe a close second.
Why do you think it's the hardest region?
Australia?
Yeah.
There's legends there. A good example, Sasa winning. Sasa, the very first time he goes to World, or even Anthony, they've competed for a long time. They were never the superstar, right? They get out of Australia and they immediately win Worlds. It's kind of unheard of, but to me it shows the level of depth in Australia is so deep that you get a guy that was third, fourth, and he goes to Worlds and he wins.
But this is the thing. I actually disagree with you.
I love this. Okay,
because the competition in Australia now struggles to get 12 people competing in the barista competition nationally. So how many do you get in Canada? You have regional scenes, right?
So we have barista. We have about 30. Brewers is maybe 50. We had 100 cup tasters this year.
Yeah, cup tasters is there's a lot more participation in that, and brewers in Australia. But At the moment, I don't know why, but the association in Australia it's a bit of a Russian roulette game as to whether we actually have a competition one year or not. And to me, the amount of people competing in the barista category is declining. It is top heavy though. You've got people like Jack Simpson and Gabriel Tan, and last year we had Hugh Kelly. So that's a pretty good top
Angus
three.
is coming back, I think.
Well, Angus coming back, but still, like there's just not. I don't think we're doing enough to encourage people to compete in Australia, and I think we should do more and more to do it.
You should compete, Kirk.
Maybe, but do I want to put myself through the fire? Well, I will say in defence of Australian Specialty Coffee Association that they've got this thing called the Community Cup now, where I think community coffee competitions where they're kind of making it easier, like they're removing the barriers to entry. And I would actually like to see more, I guess, funding for people to compete. So it should, obviously there's a lot of expense going into winning. A lot of the time the winner has significantly more resources because you've got to buy hundreds of dollars a kilo Panama, or, you know, some people get creative and get by with less and do a great job. And I think that's great. But I think that I'd love to see a model internationally, really. We just had someone from Qatar here and he said there's been 3 Brewers Cups there, period, ever. So I think I'd love to see more opportunities for people to enter, particularly in Australia, where everyone says, "Oh, it's so good," but like we're barely fielding candidates.
Yeah, I think part of it is because it is so top heavy. A lot of people don't see the reward, so associations have to promote it that winning isn't the only thing that has value, because I think that's often the mindset. But then again, to counter you a little bit, sometimes I wonder about this because the costs of comp. So we've always run it very shoestring. We're not a small company, but in the early days we were a very small company. But part of me thinks like it's a world level competition, and if you look at like all other sports, like let's say you said F1, it's too expensive to build the car, like no one's gonna. And so I think there's a balance. I think it should be more accessible, but then sometimes I'm wondering like it's a world level competition. It's gonna cost money.
Yeah, well, and I'm here, like we're here at World of Coffee Dubai, and it's run by the Specialty Coffee in collaboration with the Specialty Coffee Association, I guess you'd say. It's a pretty well put together event, and like this is a massive expo, and there's more and more going on across the globe. Like I'd love to see a bigger focus on investing in the next generation, because we're entering into a time where you look at the coffee price at the moment, in the C market, like there's going to be a lot more expenses for people, and they're probably thinking, you know what, entering a competitor is the last thing on my mind. But in saying that, there's never been a more important time to promote what I consider to be a sport, the sport of barista competition. Like we need to encourage the next generation, see what innovations flow down, and just grow it. Like make this kind of a bit more appealing to the masses.
I have a theory on it a little bit too. So I think when I started in coffee, it was quite a while ago. There weren't scales, like grinders didn't have timers on them, and I think back in that day, because there's no set things, you got to experiment quite a bit more. And I think part of the problem is now it's good for consistency, but every cafe now has such strict recipes that I think it's harder for a barista to develop a unique skill set, to know how to experiment with coffee. You kind of have to do that on your own time. Where in the past, I could just jump on bar. Everyone had a different dial, and like you would just, everything was based on feel. And I think that is part of it too, is that we don't really equip baristas often to go and figure things out and experiment, because there's just, here's your recipe. This is across all the cafes and you have to do it. So I think part of that is a generational thing that we need to sort out. I don't know what the answer is, but I think we should be allowing our staff to experiment a little bit more on bar.
Do you think that barista competition, I think it's only a matter of time before there's a compulsory aspect to it? Like, would you like to see that?
I think, so here's where the controversial opinions come in.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think compulsory in Brewers Cup is an equalizing factor.
Why not?
If you talk to people, there's a couple recipes that live in the wilderness. Like there's Tetsu's AeroPress recipe. I know Sam has a really good recipe from Ona. There's a couple clever recipes. And if you pay for the coach, you get to know the recipe. And they're sort of locked in. Like I've worked on a recipe because I was training with Wilfred. Wilfred had a really good recipe and we were dialing into each other. I have a recipe now that I can hand it to someone and they'll do very well with that compulsory recipe. So we think it shows the best brewer, but sometimes it's the person that has the coach. And then you carry that over to espresso and it becomes even harder because in compulsory brewing, You get to bring a different paper filter. You can bring a V60, different water temperatures, immersion or percolation. Espresso, everyone's probably going to land somewhere like 19 in, 40 out. And so I don't know if that's the solution. It could be, Maxwell a long time ago said maybe you should have a quiz. I know in Mexico, actually, you have to do like a coffee quiz before you can compete.
Yeah, right.
And so that could be an equalizing factor. I don't know if compulsory is the solution though.
And to give everyone a bit of context here, compulsory is when everyone's given the same coffee and they have to effectively brew it as best as they can using a brewer of their choice, so to speak. And so it's kind of like an opportunity to you've just kind of flipped the narrative on its head, but a way to see who really can brew the same coffee the best, I guess you'd say. And it's not yet in the barista category, but one day could and should be. But I think
they could do it. But I think to the copy and paste from brewers, I don't think many people disagree with me. I don't think compulsory is a necessary equalizing factor.
One thing I'd like to see more of from barista competitors is that you really have to have your coffee available after for people to drink.
I love that.
I know that like sometimes coffees that you use come in small quantities, so it's difficult to do that and they are expensive. But to me, I kind of don't see the whole point. I don't see the point of it if you don't get to share it.
Yeah.
It's like I just think at the world level, we need to kind of make sure that everyone's making their coffee on bar. I think that's available a little bit now, but I'd love to see that explored further.
I actually think it's part of the reason coffee, it's hard to grow it visually, like in TV and film and things. If you watch like Top Chef, you see a dish, there's different colors, they really played it well. You can imagine what it tastes like. The world's best espresso and the world's worst espresso, they almost look the same, right? Like it's a cup of brown. Yeah. And so I think until you can let people taste like, this is what Jack Simpson made and this is why it tastes so good and you actually can taste it. That's the only way people can understand, I think. Because right now it's just a bunch of brown cups and until you can actually taste it, you don't really know why it's different.
Who are your top 3 coffee heroes of all time?
Oh, maybe.
You've been in the game for a while.
Are we just in barista or is it it can be anything I want?
Anyone.
I think I'm old enough, James Hoffman.
James Hoffman? Well, I mean, everyone knows James Hoffman.
He's like the Neil deGrasse Tyson of coffee, kind of. Like, I think he really knows his stuff. He's funny. He's opened it up to the broader public. I think that's for sure a game changer. Wilfred Lamastus Sr. has taught me so much about coffee. Actually, back in the day when I would visit Alita, I would actually sleep in the mill. There's like a room.
In the mill?
In the mill. Like there would only be me and people sorting coffee at night. So I've learned a ton from him. And then I think Christopher Hendon, I think was also a bit of a Neil deGrasse Tyson type thing. He's popularized science. I think in coffee, many baristas maybe didn't go to uni. They worked in coffee and moved on. And I think what Chris is doing is popularizing science, true hard science, and making it interesting for coffee people. I hope he keeps doing that. Actually, during COVID, he did this thing where, because his students couldn't go into the lab, he would build like coffee brewing experiments and relate them to his classes. And so I hope he does something like that. Imagine if you could do like intro to chem, but it's only brewing coffee at home. Like something like that, I think would be really cool.
That's like a practical introduction to chemistry coffee edition.
Yeah.
Well, I'd agree with you there with Christopher Hendon because he's done some things like freezing coffee.
Yeah.
He co-wrote that book with Maxwell Kelowna Dashwood, the Water for Coffee book that's been really seminal. And he's doing things that probably a bit hard for a lot of people to understand with Coffee Lit Review, but still very important work that hopefully, flows down one day. I've seen he's done entire episodes on coffee valves and things like that for bags and stuff like that, which, bit of a dry read for some people, but for us coffee nerds, it's delightful. Yeah. We all learn a lot.
And if you meet him, he's like the most humble, down-to-earth guy and like, he's just awesome.
I said to him, once I interviewed him on my previous podcast and we're going to get him on this one. I'm going to try. His mum is actually cooler than him. Have you met his mum?
No, but I've seen her. She does like the cup tasters, right?
Yeah. So Chris is probably like 40 years old and his mum must be, I don't know, close to 70. And she competes in cup tasters and she's really good. And I think she had some sort of cancer within her nose. So she had to have surgery and her sensory abilities were affected. But for whatever reason, she can actually tell the cups apart significantly better than a lot of people.
Really?
So yeah. So cup tasters isn't tasting a coffee and telling what it tastes like. It's being able to differentiate different cups from one another. She excels at it. Plus, she's really nice and invited me to Christmas dinner once randomly. So, Chris, your mum's cooler than you.
Legend.
Well, that's just about all we have time for. I think we've got to get to the results for the UAE Barista Championship that's about to be announced. Have you got an extra hot take with 2 sugars while you're here?
I do.
All right. Well, down the barrel, tell your extra hot take with 2 sugars.
My extra hot take with 2 sugars is that maybe specialty coffee isn't for everyone. We often believe, I think it's a financial thing. We want everyone to be drinking specialty coffee. But if you really think of it, you look at every other market, not every product that is higher quality can go to everyone. I think that there's a bigger market. I think there's a lot of people we can share it with. But I think we should realize that specialty coffee is special. And that means that it can't be everywhere.
And this is actually a great point because I've kind of spoken to a lot of people about this. I think there's going to be more, the direction for people and their coffee consumption is going to go like this in terms of the quality that they have. More people, as the price increases, will be driven to less expensive, lower quality coffee. And more people will be driven to higher price coffee and high quality coffee because there's just going to be not much room for people in the middle anymore. And unfortunately, I think that probably spells, trouble for a lot of specialty roasters across Australia and perhaps Canada as well, or what is specialty. But I totally agree with you. We shouldn't be trying to make everyone drink great coffee. Who gives a shit? If they're paying for it and they're happy, like, who cares?
And that coffee's got to go somewhere.
That coffee's got to go somewhere.
It can't all be specialty.
There's a purpose for it. And in a scenario like that, it probably makes what we do more special, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I actually 100% agree with you. That's a great extra hot take with 2 sugars. But we'll wrap it up here. Ben, are you an eco warrior?
I'm actually not an eco warrior.
What are you?
I'm an eco barista.
Ooh, that's cold. We're sponsored by Eco Barista in Australia. If you want to get some products, bags made for your coffee business, go to www.ecobarista.com.au. 15% off your first order. Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Putt, as always, it's just coffee. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been awesome.
Pleasure.
Yeah.